I just want to give you guys the heads up again. Mr. D and I are both very sorry about Monday. Um, there is a bit of a medical situation in our family right now, and we have been in the hospital. But as a reminder, next week is spring break, so hopefully after the break, everything will be a little bit more under control. Again, we hate to have class recorded. I know it's not as interactive and it's not as dynamic for you guys. So thanks for being flexible with us. Oh, Max, I hope you're feeling better. I see you're sick as well. So what we're gonna do today, it's actually we're gonna be wrapping up the 3D printing 3D printing unit, and we're gonna be talking about the class is gonna be a little bit different. We're gonna be talking about what is coming with 3D printing, what the future of 3D printing looks like. I will give a heads up just as we start class, a little bit about the project and what's going on with that, not the contest. So, and actually before the contest, I want to talk a little bit about the houses as well. I was out of town last week, so I did not get to be there for that class right after you guys did your house projects, but I want you to know that I did download all of them and I really enjoyed looking at them. You guys did an absolutely fantastic job. I'm hoping there's a way I can kind of maybe create a PowerPoint to showcase them and just to show you guys off. You did an awesome job. I really liked everyone's enthusiasm. And there was just so much detail and creativity. It was really great, guys. I appreciate the work that you put into those, and hopefully we'll be able to showcase those. I'm trying to think of the best way. I know they were up on Edmodo, but it is harder for everyone to download them to their computer. So thinking about the best way to do that. But great job, guys. And which house project? Someone says the SketchUp house project, where you guys made the houses on SketchUp. Where I asked you guys to design a house after you put together those garages. But that was from a while ago. I just was not here last week. Someone else was subbing in for me. I just wanted to comment on this. And then the next thing I want to talk about was the Pi Day contest. Guys, we have gotten so many great submissions for that. We said that the last day to submit was Sunday, but we just kept getting more submissions past that point. And so we have accepted everyone that's turned it in. I think either today or tomorrow is going to be the absolute last day because we really do need to get judging those. Now, in terms of judging, we're going to try to have a decision made by the end of our break, this class's break, which is next week. But actually, Mr. D is going to be contacting some folks to help us judge them. You guys have so many great submissions. It's going to be really hard, and we have to. It's hard. We might even end up with categories. I don't know if that's an option, but some really smart, really great work that you guys submitted. So we're gonna maybe put together a little bit of a panel to help us sort through all of them. Great work there too. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what you guys learned with Tinkercad and 3D printing. A quick review before we talk about what the future for 3D printing holds. So this is kind of, these were examples that you saw in your last lesson. And these were all items printed from a 3D printer. You can see that they're made with that kind of plastic material. So maybe metal, maybe, I'm not quite sure what that one is. And some jewelry. Mainly they are small contraptions, or not contraptions, just like very detailed, beautiful. This one especially very detailed little works. And a lot of times when people are talking about 3D printing, they talk about these kinds of examples, things you would find around your house. And most of the time they're talking about 3D printing using a plastic material. Make sure I don't have any questions. And again, 3D printing is additive manufacturing, which means the process of making a 3D solid object of almost any shape from a digital model. And it's different from, it's additive because it's using this additive process. It's adding things to create items as other than subtracting it. Other than kind of shaving down to create an item, you're building it through layers. And it's designed with 3D modeling software like Tinkercad, sent to the machine and designed layer by layer. So, I know I just showed that slide a little bit. Make sure it's... What we're going to talk about next are some industries that are really being changed by 3D printing, because you might just think of 3D printing as something you could use to make a little something for your house, a little something like a shower curtain ring or jewelry. And 3D printing can be used to do that. That's really, it's very good at doing that, or making really any plastic model or figure. But 3D printing is actually, the idea of that additive process is being used by so many industries that in the next few years, it's really going to change the face on how we consider construction. But not just physical construction. The first example is how it's changing culinary, the culinary world. I know you guys just got a glimpse of that slide, but does anyone have an idea of a way that you could use a 3D printer in the culinary world as a chef or as a cake decorator? Does anyone have any ideas? Ooh, Jeremy. What do you think, Jeremy?
Hey, you could print the model, then put the mold in it and bake it, then pull it out. It's like if you want something a bit more complex.
That's a great idea. So you could have like a cake that was shaped like some sort of design, like a castle or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeremy, that's a great idea. You could have more complicated cake molds, and you could even, scan something so you get an exact replica. For example, you could design a cake mold that looks just like your dog's head, or something like that, right? Because you can use computer scanning to create kind of the shell of an object. I know we haven't talked about that too much, but you'll see that in today's lesson. Someone in another class brought up that you could use a 3D printer if you are a cake decorator to create those little molds at the top of the cake, or the little, not molds, if it's a wedding cake and you have a cake topper, you could use 3D printing for that, and you could make it really personal. Or you could make your own individual icing tips, right? Cake decorators, when they're making flowers and stuff like that, they have to use different kinds of tips. So if you were able to create really specific tips, you could do all sorts of stuff. But actually, that's might be what you're thinking of if you're thinking of building these plastic little models. There are actually so many different ways that the culinary world is using 3D printing. And we're gonna watch a short video to kind of explore that. Oh wow, I have so many things here. Make a chocolate mold. Yeah, Andrew, that's perfect. Printing cake toppings. Printing cake toppings. I don't know if you meant toppers, Elizabeth, but you are going down a good line. A 3D food printer. Anthony, awesome. Yes, there is such a thing as a 3D food printer. You just change, you don't put plastic in your 3D printer, you put something else. So let's watch this short video.
So I'm here with Chef David Arnold at the French Culinary Institute. David, you are playing around with a really cool technology, the 3D food printer. Talk to me, what exactly is this?
All right, well, basically it's a machine that you take any form of paste, right? That's the kind of thing you have to get. And you get it into a syringe, and it'll extrude it into any shape that any shape you want. As long as you can create it in the computer, you can make it out of whatever you can put through the syringe. So we're doing things with icing, we're doing things with cookie doughs, we're doing things.
So this is the exact same thing, except in here would normally be plastic, and now they're using edible materials.
Masa, the same stuff you make tortillas out of, things like that. The only real limitation now is that the product has to be able to go through a syringe. Other than that, sky's the limit. All right, so here it's a little more sturdy now that it's been steamed. So I'm going to fry it, don't worry. Everything's got to fry.
I'm a graduate student at Cornell University in the Computational Synthesis Lab, and I'm the lead of the Fab at Home project. This is an open source 3D printer. What that means is we give away all the blueprints, all the designs, all the technical information that you need to build your own, to sell your own, or to innovate with it.
And this is so unique. We're going to keep seeing this today. He's creating this, and it is available for sale. They talk about for sale later, but he's also putting exactly how you make it right out there for everyone to use. So you could make one at your own home. Also, the different icing designs, all of that stuff, that's all available. And it's really community-based. This is different than any major wave of manufacturing in history, right? Normally, people try to do things like copyright something or make it so that they are the ones that understand. And they might make kind of alliances in the manufacturing world and share certain things, but they keep certain secrets. That's the opposite of what's happening right now. And that's why it's moving so quickly and we're learning so fast.
The basic innovation behind it is that it allows you to inject skill into the process. I may not be the best frosting decorator in the world, but with a 3D printer, I can lay my food down and get beautiful artwork out. So it's about making it as easy as possible by injecting the skill of others.
Anything that requires a high level of precision that people don't usually have with their hands in terms of making icing or decorations, this thing can perform amazingly well and have good repetition for small runs, like your house, like your holiday cookies, right?
How much would one of these go for?
So the price point that we're shooting for is about $1,000. So we would like it to be $1,000, and then eventually we want to bring it to a price point of say $700. So we'll bring it to the price point of the iPad. And
all right, and so I just wanted to get you guys have the idea. They still are very expensive. That's another thing that we'll be seeing all day. These are not cheap right now, but as we'll talk about too, they actually developed a 3D printer that makes another copy of itself. It makes a 3D printer. There's just so much many cool things happening right now. But they said their example was kind of someone that was at home and wanted to, use that technical skill. Maybe they made cookies and they wanted to add that special design, or they wanted a certain shape of that fried donut. That's what they were eating. It was kind of like a fried donut. Why do you think this is for home, for someone that just really loves cooking and they want to be able to add those cool icing techniques? Why do you think this is for home and not for a restaurant? What do you think, Jeremy?
Yeah, like he said, for those people who don't have that much precision or aren't very good at it, but they want to make something, and it's way beyond their skill level, they can just use that.
Yeah, that's a great point. So a chef might know how to do it, and there's a certain amount of art that goes into putting that icing on. Maybe you don't want it to look the exact same way every time you do it. And then Anthony, you have a really good point too. You typed in an answer, and he said takes too long. And that's a great point. I actually work at a bakery, and in the back they make about they can ice 36 cupcakes in under 2 minutes. They are very, very good at it. And so using the 3D printer might not be exactly what they want. But it would be very cool if you love working, baking, kind of making the food itself, and you wanted to add those little touches. It's just a cool innovation that they're making with 3D printing. All right, and then I have some different applications here. And these are not currently used for sale, but in the future they could be, where you're actually printing meat and printing fruit and vegetables. And so what they are experimenting with right now is they're able to break meat down and pretty much any food into its components, until it's what it's actually made of, and then put that material and 3D print with that material. So you'd be able to eat steak that didn't really look like steak. It's not like putting steak into a blender and putting it into a mold. It's different than that. I couldn't find a good video with the printing meat. This is something that's very experimental right now, but it is interesting and what they're planning to do in the future. And with these fruits and vegetables, there's an example here where they actually do something a lot more simple, but in some places, watermelons are too big to sell because the way you can't stack them. They're, a watermelon shape. It's very difficult to keep them in a store. So what a farmer actually ended up doing was putting a small, still growing watermelon in a clear box. And so it ended up to look to be square, and you could stack them. That was a very simple solution and a very smart solution, but there are ways that actually changing the shape of fruit and vegetables can be helpful. I think mainly right now they're doing this just, as a kind of say they can. That makes sense. But there's a lot going on. Again, just changing the material that you put in. Medical applications. This is what I personally think is the absolute coolest thing going on with 3D printing right now. There's something called bioprinting, where they take parts of, in the future, this is what they're working on, they'll take parts of your own skin, or not the skin, oh, where's my dog? Parts of your own cells, and have them grow them, like in a dish. I don't know if you guys have heard of like a petri dish. And then use that material to grow organs or skin. So instead of, currently, if you have a bad burn, or there's some reason that you need more skin, like you have a large gash, they have to take skin from other parts of your body and graft it. And it's painful, and it can be costly and more difficult, and it might not turn out looking exactly correct. And it's never great to have to take skin from a healthy part of your body to cover another part. What they would actually be able to do with the 3D printer was use your skin cells, create a culture, or grow them outside of your body, and actually print out more skin. I know that sounds a little bit nuts right now, because you might be thinking of the MakerBot and the way that looks, but I have a short video for you guys to watch that explains that, and explains a little bit about the futures that they have with printing actual organs. And it's just very exciting. And this video starts out explaining a little bit that there's a huge problem right now in our country. More and more people are needing organ transplants, and there's just not enough. The list for an organ transplant is very long, and so I'll let him explain what he has done, and he has a process where he can help grow organs, and how he is hoping to use a 3D printer to be able to make this way less expensive and to help way more people.
We're also working on more sophisticated printers, because in reality, our biggest challenge are the solid organs.
I'm going to post this video. He already briefly spoke about how you would use a 3D printer with skin, and that would be possible even at this point.
I don't know if you realize this, but 90% of the patients on the transplant list are actually waiting for a kidney. Patients are dying every day because we don't have enough of those organs to go around. So this is more challenging. Large organ, vascular.
I'll let you guys know that they are about to show some body parts. just the kidney parts. It's not too graphic, but if you don't like looking at medical information, I'll let you know and you can look, okay?
A lot of blood vessel supply, a lot of cells
Those are the
present.
kidneys.
So the strategy here is this is actually a CT scan, an X-ray, and we go layer by layer using computerized morphometric imaging analysis and 3D reconstruction to get right down to those patients.
So those technical terms you just met are basically they use things similar to an ultrasound or an X-ray, and they store that information in a computer and use that information to model it in a computer. Now we're looking at a model. There are still pictures of the inside of a human body right now. So if that bothers you, look away for a moment.
We then are able to actually image those, do 360-degree rotation to actually analyze the kidney in its full volumetric characteristics, and we then are able to actually take this information and then scan this in a printing computerized form. So we go layer.
What's happening right now is they're showing the different layers of the kidney. It's as if they took slices and they're taking each slice.
Layer by layer through the organ, analyzing each layer as we go through the organ, and we then are able to send that information as you see.
All right, they're not going to show kidney anymore, so you can watch again. And these are the different layers I was just talking about in the computer, that information.
Here, through the computer, and actually designed the organ for the patient. This actually shows the actual printer. And this actually shows that printing. In fact, we actually have the printer right here. So while we've been talking today, we've actually, you can actually see the printer back here in the backstage. That's actually the actual printer right now, and that's been printing this kidney structure that you see here. It takes about 7 hours to print a kidney, so this is about 3 hours into it now. And Dr. Kang's going to walk on stage right now, and we're actually going to show you one of these kidneys that we printed a little bit earlier today.
So again, what's in that cup is not an actual kidney, but is a kidney made out of very similar materials. So it's the shape of a kidney, and it just wouldn't be it's not made out of anyone's specific kidney cells. So he's going to hold it in his hand. It's not gross. I'm just letting you guys know what's going to happen in case you don't want to watch. It's actually very, very cool. This was printed.
Thank you.
And what this message is saying is it's still experimental. They're still studying it, but it's very, very promising.
So these gloves are a little bit small on me, but here it is. You can actually see that kidney as it was printed earlier today. Has a little bit of consistency to it. This is Dr. Khan, who's been working with us in this project, and we one part of our team. Thank you, Dr. Khan. Appreciate it. So this is actually a new generation. This is actually the printer that you see here on stage, and this is actually the new technologies we're working on now. In reality, you know, we now have a long history of doing this. I'm going to share with you a clip in terms of technology that we have had in patients now for a while. And this is actually a very brief clip, only about 30 seconds.
So the clip that he goes on to show, he's talking about how how he has already used kind of bioengineering or biological engineering, biomedical engineering, where basically he's able to engineer body parts. The process, he's not using a 3D printer. He hasn't been using a 3D printer to do this. He wants to use a 3D printer to both expedite or make the process faster and also make it cheaper. He'd be able to make many, many more organs if he was able to do it with something like a 3D printer instead of having to grow the organs. I know this is a little bit confusing, or just it seems a little bit abstract since we can't actually watch him do that or see a fast-forwarded version, but in the video, we do get to meet someone that he has saved by growing an organ, and that hopefully he'd be able to grow many more.
So, Luke, before last night, when's the last time you saw Tony?
10 years ago when I had my surgery, and it's really great to see him.
Tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Well, right now I'm in college at the University of Connecticut. I'm a sophomore and studying communications, TV, and mass media, and basically trying to live life like a normal kid, which I always wanted growing up, but it was hard to do that when I was born with spina bifida and my kidneys and bladder weren't working. I went through about 16 surgeries, and it seemed impossible to do that when I was in kidney failure when I was 10. And this surgery came along and basically made me who I am today and saved my life.
And Tony done hundreds of these?
What I know from he's working really hard in his lab and coming up with crazy stuff. I know I was one of the first 10 people to have this surgery, and when I was 10, I didn't realize how amazing it was. I was a little kid, and I was like, yeah, I'll have that surgery. All I wanted to do was to get better, and I didn't realize how amazing it really was until now that I'm older and I see the amazing things that he's doing.
So again, to explain, when the boy, when he was born, he had spina bifida, and his kidneys and bladder were not working correctly. So he was one of the first people to have new organs kind of constructed or grown in that way. And so, as he said,
lab and coming up with crazy stuff. I know I was amazing thing.
He has helped hundreds of people. Anthony Atala has. This doctor has helped hundreds of people kind of get them new organs in a way. But with being able to add 3D printing to this would help so many more. It would just be on a whole different level if they were able to have these 3D printers in different hospitals around the world. And another thing to keep in mind is these are actual fields that you can get into. There are culinary fields that deal with technology. Right now, it might take 5 minutes to create that kind of strange icing decoration that you want on the top of a cupcake. But down the line, and you can actually become a part of it. If you love cooking or baking and you love technology, it only takes a while right now. Already, things are always tend to get faster, cheaper, better, more efficient, and that's that can be, if that's a passion of yours, that's an avenue you can take. Biomedical engineering is a huge field, and they are constantly looking for people. This would be an incredible project to become a part of. So be thinking about that if this is something that really interests you. I think this is just nuts. What this will change with medical access. Again, the whole idea behind this culture of 3D printing is to have this be available. It's to make things cheaper. It's to bring things to more people. It's not an elite care system. They want to help people. It's part of community. The idea of community, which is great. Another thing with the medical application are prosthetics. And this is going to be the last video I showed today. I know today's a little bit video heavy, but what's really cool with what they're doing right now with prosthetics is they are able to design, they're able to scan, and you'll see this, scan someone's body and create prosthetics for them that are individual. Currently, if you need a prosthetic, if you're an amputee, you get a very general prosthetic, something that many people would use. And that can be very difficult, both in just being able to walk, but also it's not a part of your body you identify with. Prosthetics is the perfect example of how you would use a 3D printer because it's able to bring that individual into the design process.
Over a traditional prosthetic. Bespoke founder Scott Summit says that every person is physically unique. By scanning an amputee's surviving limb, they are able to make a matching prosthetic copy, recreating the body's natural symmetry. Summit says this turns the traditional design process upside down, giving amputees a prosthetic that is fabricated specifically for them.
We actually involve the person from the first moment by creating a three-dimensional scan from them. We have their body in our computer, and then we really ping them for their aesthetic choices. What's their taste preference? Because that's going to be every bit as important as their shape, is what they want to represent themselves, what they want as a part of their body.
Summit says the idea came to him when he saw how modern 3D printing technologies are revolutionizing the way products are designed and engineered.
What 3D printing allows is it lets you think it in very different terms. Instead of assembling parts to make a final thing, you can print that entire thing in one shot. Not only that, it is very specific to the person. And of all products that should be specific to the person, perhaps a prosthetic leg is the highest priority there.
After the scan is complete, it is sent over to 3D Systems, a 3D printing company in South Carolina. Here, the scan is fed into a printer where high-powered lasers turn a bed of nylon powder into the fairing. Chad Crittenden lost his leg to cancer. He's one of the first people to receive a bespoke fairing.
I started to feel almost naked without it. Then I realized that, my gosh, I really am feeling like something's missing when I don't have that. And it's true. It's like your calf is there with it on because you look down and it's just the perfect shape. And I think that subconsciously you're recognizing your calf is there. It's really neat.
Dennis Weichel hopes his new fairing will not only change the way the world sees him, but restore the sense of wholeness.
Right here, I wanted to show that guys real fast. This is what I was talking about before, where you can scan something and upload that scan onto your computer. And your computer can create a model, and from that model you can kind of alter it, and that would be in a software such as SketchUp. It's probably going to be a little bit more advanced than SketchUp, but that's what's happening right now.
Sees him, but restore the sense of wholeness he lost 35 years ago in a motorcycle accident.
It doesn't look like a prosthetic.
And so those lights, the way that they're bent, and then the way that they're read by the sensors, are all used to create that 3D model. I have a comment here from Steven, who said he's always wanted to be a biomedical engineer. That's awesome, Steven. It's such a rewarding field. What you're doing would be really, really incredible work. All right. And there's also a video that I'll be putting up later, a really cool video on how people worked across the ocean to give this little 5-year-old boy who was born without fingers. They created a robotic hand for him. I'll just show the first 2 seconds of it because you get to see him actually picking stuff up.
A robotic prosthetic hand has been...
And so that boy didn't have fingers, and they were able to print the whole thing with 3D printing. Since they lived kind of across the world from each other, that really sped up the process. Very cool. Any questions? Any questions about what we've seen so far? I know I've been talking a lot today on showing these videos, but I hope you guys now see that really 3D printing is very cool with what we can do with Tinkercad and design those little knickknacks for your home, design those little quick fixes, but it's more than that. It's a new form of design, a new form of manufacturing that's very different than anything we've seen before, and is definitely going to change our world. Someone has a question? Jeremy has a great question. He says, would the boy with the prosthetic hand need to get a bigger hand as he grows up? And Jeremy, yes, he would. He would have to get a bigger hand. But what is so great, and there's actually a story about this, the story is not the same. It's not the same little boy, but another family, their son was born without an arm. And when they got him fit for his first prosthetic arm, it was very expensive. And he was only just a baby. Probably not an infant, but very young, and he was going to be growing a lot, and they were going to constantly be needed to get him these prosthetic limbs, or he would have to wait until he was much older to get a prosthetic arm. What they ended up being able to do is they got some help. They were able to scan his prosthesis and then scan his other arm and kind of make the prosthesis a little bit more similar to his other arm. And then the only thing that they did not make with a 3D printer was the hand. The hand was made out of this really nice kind of metal because there was some computer that went into the arm as well. And so he was able to open and close that. But they were able to use a really lightweight metal so that they could make it large enough for him to be able to use until he grew up, but them not have to constantly replace that part. But the whole arm was used making a 3D printer. It was all printed, and what they're able to do now is every year they're able to just select the arm model that they have on the computer and increase it by a certain percentage. And the way that they have it designed is it will increase, it will grow based on how a real arm would grow. So it wouldn't be like in SketchUp when we just, said that we wanted to make that block twice as big, right? Because the arm would get, twice as round as also longer. And that's not how arms develop. It's just really cool technology that they're using so that every year for his birthday, he actually gets a new arm as well so that it can be growing with him, and it's really not expensive. That was a little bit lengthy of a response, Jeremy, but yes, he will have to get a new prosthetic hand. It just won't be difficult for him since he will just be able to print a new hand. Steven, I would email that project or post it on Edmodo. I wasn't here when Mr. D set up the Tinkercad projects, but I would love to see your pavilion, so I would post it on Edmodo so I can see that. But all right, so the last thing, I have this slide up here. We're going to talk about with the future of 3D printing is sustainability. What is great about 3D printing is the fact that you would be able to make enough for exactly the amount of people that would want it. If you go into a Target, there are a lot of or not just a Target, any big box store, if you will. There's a lot of very strange things. Christmas sweaters for dogs, weird little kitchen tools that clearly not everyone wants or uses. There's only a very select population of people that will buy that. It's hard to predict how many people will want that, right? There was that craze, I remember a few years back, for those hamster toys. And, people make a lot of toys every year. It's hard to tell which are going to be the really popular one. So manufacturers often make way too much, and we have a lot of waste. What would be great, currently, it's really small scale with 3D printing because it takes so long. Currently, so it's small scale, but if we'd be able to develop this technology and make it for larger, we would be able to really eliminate that waste. And there be no real way for Target to make, 1-to-1 for every user. But what could happen is those online stores, there are certain like online stores, like not really Etsy because that's what people are making their own, but that you'd be able to order one and they might be able to print it out for you and send it to you. Or manufacturing companies that Target gets a lot of their materials from would be able to do smaller batches. So it's just interesting. It would change the way manufacturing works. You wouldn't have to necessarily commit to a ton being made in order to make money off of it, which is kind of how the model is right now. It's difficult to make a small number of things. You're also going to, if you're using it at your own home for something like printing your own shower rings or just little knickknacks like that, jewelry, etc., you'd be cutting down on shipping. So, and a big thing is repair and upcycling. You're able to design things online to repair what you have instead of buying something new, instead of replacing what you've. You might have a fully functioning coffee maker that just the handle of the coffee kind of pot broke. Well, you might be able to design a new handle. That's going to be a little bit more complicated. There are people that definitely do that. There's a lot of examples of that online. I personally would have some trouble designing my own coffee handle if it broke right now, but there are different ways that you can approach that. I've also seen some really cool repairs where people even patch sidewalks, again, scanning it. The whole idea of being able to scan something as it exists now and create a model to fix it or to duplicate it is very cool. Upcycling is another idea. I don't know if you guys have heard of upcycling, but let's say you have a glass jar and it used to be filled with jam, but now you're done with it. Instead of throwing it, or definitely not throwing it away, it's glass, so you can recycle it. But instead of recycling it, you can actually continue to use it. And that is less waste than recycling. Recycling is great. It's so much better than throwing away, but it still takes a lot of energy. It takes energy to take that material to the recycling plant, and it takes energy for that, a lot of oil and other resources to use that material. It's definitely better than trash. Definitely you should recycle, but it's even better to upcycle. You'd be able to take something like a glass jar and make it into a juicer by maybe printing out the top. And you wouldn't have to figure out how to make a juicer, right? There's all those online communities, and there are a lot of websites that have so many ideas for upcycling. I should actually post some of those online. They're very cool. The juicer one was an example. All right, so what we're going to do for the rest of class today, we have about 15 minutes. We are going to talk a little bit about 3D tin. 3D tin is something similar to Tinkercad or to SketchUp, but way, way, way easier. It's so easy to use. I'm not even really going to show you guys too much how to use it. You need one of these browsers to work. You go to 3dtin.com. And when you get there, this screen will pop up. You need the latest of Java, and again, you need one of those browsers. If you don't, it's okay. We're not really going to be using 3D Tin. I just wanted to talk about what this means, what having this software means for the future of 3D printing. The whole purpose of this is you're able to make very cool things to send to an actual 3D printer, and people do use this program for a 3D printer, and it's just incredible. It's like building with Legos. That's the best way to describe it. once you understand the tools, if you do want to use this program, it's free, and there's this community button. You would need to make an account to access the community button, which is just to access what other people have made. Definitely ask your parents before making an account. But once you click on that in the circle, or that's not a circle, that's a cube. If you click on that cube, you can get to these tutorials if you actually want to learn how to use all of the tools. But they're really similar to things that you've already seen. Kind of here's your camera. You can add cubes, and those do work in a very similar way to Lego, and you can pull them out. And you can kind of stack them. If you need to move an object or rotate your screen, you click this rotate button. You can click your object and pull to drag it. If you don't want to add a cube, you want to add another shape, you can click on these templates. Before I click on a template, Steven has asked a question. Is 3D Tin as good as Tinkercad? And that's what we're going to ask. I'm not going to really spend too much more time in 3D Tin today. But let me show you this, Steven, and we will all reach a conclusion on which one is better. And so you can add these cubes because they're kind of the basic building blocks, like the Legos. If I wanted to add another kind of shape, I would go into this template. And you can see they already have all these pre-built shapes for you. Oops, we're not going to actually build our own geometry. They have spherical templates. They have conical templates. And you can just change their shape by changing the radius and the height. And add these things to your program. It's just very cool. It's much easier to do than if you were to do that in SketchUp, but at the same time, it's not as exact. You're not going to be able to be as particular, and if you get really good at Google SketchUp, it's so fast. It's really quick. You can make something like a house very quickly. And you can do exactly what you want with this shape instead of kind of just entering those two parameters. But at the same time, in this right-hand screen, look at what all of these people have made using this program. Some very cool things. And they're able to print them. These are kind of the best of the best, but still very cool stuff. So this is 3dtin.com. And let's talk a little bit about 3D Tin. So we've talked about this a little bit. What makes 3D Tin different from SketchUp or Tinkercad? And it's the fact that you already have this template of shapes. You're not making the shapes yourself, really. And so it's a little bit easier. It's like building with Legos. So what are the benefits to that? Who can raise their hand or type in a benefit of making this software so it's so easy to use? Do you guys think you would be able to use this? Yeah, it's faster. Max, it's faster to learn. That's true. Do you guys think that you'd be able to learn this if you didn't know SketchUp? That is a little bit of a loaded question. Yes, I think you guys would be able to understand this software within a very short amount of time, especially if you took the time to watch those tutorials. You could understand this just if you didn't understand CAD software. All you need to really be able to do is play a computer game. These are really just simple tools, really easy to understand, very much like using something like a Lego designer. So it's faster. More people with less skill could use it. That's what Olivia says. Exactly. Anyone would be able to kind of experience a 3D printer with it. And what about some limitations? Can anyone think about what would be the problem? Like, why wouldn't, if this is easier, why don't people just use this? Anyone think of something? Jeremy? It wouldn't have as complex shapes. Exactly. Some of these shapes that you're seeing here, I believe they use the thing which is creating your own geometry, which make your own geometry. That does make it more complicated when you kind of alter the geometry that way. If you wanted to make something really complex and send it and really specific, you're going to want to use something more like Google SketchUp. If you're gonna make a kidney, if you're going to make anything that needs that extra layer of detail, if you want to import a scan, you can't use this basic software. So this would be probably the most, yeah, Stephen, it's more detailed. And so SketchUp is. So if this is kind of just the point of today was to show from the most basic and the most free, I mean, not the most free, but this is free to anyone. And you don't even have to put it on your computer. It's just available over the web. And you'd be able to print these out. I'd be able to send this exact thing to a 3D printer once I saved it. And from here, from this level, all the way up to designing your own organs, printing your own prosthetics. 3D printing really covers the gambit. It is not limited to just making the little knickknacks for your house or just those online communities. Anthony asked me if there are measurements, inches and millimeters in 3D10. I'm actually not quite sure how they do that. I know there has to be some amount somewhere. I imagine it just has to do with these grid locks, Anthony, because you would be sending it to a 3D printer, so clearly there has to be some amount. But I'm not sure. I don't know too much about 3D10. So sorry, Anthony. I can look into that though. And it's also, I mean, this example up here with the community and with SketchUp, where they have that 3D warehouse, it's really into sharing their designs and having a community space. There are spaces, places that people can go in many communities that have a 3D printer that you're able to kind of maybe not use for free, but apply like, hey, I think this would be really cool if I could make this, would I be able to use that? And if it works and this is really cool, then anyone can have my design. Anyone can use it. Lego actually has a way where you can make your own Legos because they kind of got to the point where they realized someone else was going to put it out there. Just the difference would be it would take forever to make your own set of Legos. And Legos are just really cool. Lego's a great company to support. I would not just sit there and make all of my own Legos with a 3D printer. Anyway, that's kind of just an overview of 3D printing and what is to kind of come with it. What's the future of 3D printing? Well, it's everything from being the most very user-friendly way for anyone to print something that they design, all the way up into very, very complex medical and biomedical engineering. Does anyone have any questions? Again, 3D10 is very cool because unlike SketchUp, if you have an idea of something that you want to make, I think it's easier to approach making it with 3D10. Let me show with a new. For example, if I want to make a teacup, I can just go to spherical templates, get a half of a sphere. It's a shell. And then, again, if you watch the tutorial, this is really easy. I just click View, Rotate, and I can right-click on that object. And I can flip it over. I'm going to do a vertical flip. Let's see if it will work. I do not know why that's not flipping for me. Oh, it depends on which axis you're on too. Of course, it's always these problems with the axis. All right, so I flipped it, and I already have most of my teacup made. I can edit it and make that inner radius a little bit larger so that it's not such a, it's a little bit thinner. Right, that looks more like a teacup. And what else can I do? I can add one of these shapes here that I want to be my teacup handle. Clearly, I'm going to have to change the size of that, right? But it's more simple because you can think of, oh, what's that shape? What do I need? And you can find it and add it in. All right, guys, that's the end for today. Do send in anything for the contest by tonight. We will have a cutoff. You can't just keep sending stuff in because we do have to judge it. But we've really liked seeing what we have so far. And this is the end of our 3D printing unit on the CAD software modeling that end of it, at least. We might return to the 3D printer. Have a wonderful break, guys, even if it's not your school's spring break. And we will see you soon. Bye, guys.